Hello, welcome back to Homeschool Wherever. My name is Carmen Sognonvi, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the unit study we did on the history of aviation. So as you may or may not know, November is actually National Aviation History Month, and that's actually what gave me the idea to do this unit study. Now, if you're not entirely sure what a unit study is, I actually have a whole video that explains exactly what unit studies are and how they can be useful to your homeschool, so I'm going to link that down below. So originally I was planning to do this just more from a historical or, social studies kind of a perspective, because there's so many interesting figures involved in the history of aviation, right? From, the earliest imaginings of Leonardo da Vinci, one of his many inventions and sketches that you can see are these different flying machines for humans. You've got the Wright Brothers, who are of course pioneers in actually getting planes to fly. You've got amazing characters like Bessie Coleman, who was the first Black pilot, and actually, she was also a Black woman, and she was the first one to get her pilot's license. And there's so many other interesting women in aviation history, like of course Amelia Earhart, who was known for breaking world records, but then also unfortunately disappeared pretty mysteriously. So I felt like there was definitely a lot to dig into here. But then I thought to myself, instead of just concentrating on the historical figures and the history of aviation, why not actually talk about the science of it? I mean, after all, this is basically a STEM topic. And so I decided to bring in some of the science of flying into the unit study as well, especially because, as I've mentioned in some of my monthly update videos, we still don't really have science nailed down yet in our homeschool. I still haven't really found a science curriculum that I like, nothing that's sort of all in one. In the meantime, I'm gonna do kind of a unit study approach to science. So every month we'll pick a specific topic and we'll study the science behind that. So this month it was aviation, and then next month we're gonna do the solar system. If you're new to this channel, we are a multiracial secular family living in New York City, and we're homeschooling for the first time this year. We have two daughters, Sean, who's in 6th grade, and Ella, who's in 3rd grade. We're passionate about using travel to bring our homeschooling lessons to life. This channel is all about documenting our homeschooling journey, so if that sounds of interest to you, I hope you'll subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. Also, we're full-time family travel creators, so if you want to see that side of our lives, check out our travel channel at Top Flight Family. So one thing I have to admit is that with this unit study, and this month in general, the month of November, I was not super organized. So when I first thought about this topic for this unit study, I had checked out a ton of books from the library and had all these different subtopics in mind to study as a part of this unit study. But November ended up being a really busy month. So for us, travel has been picking up, and so I have a bit of a backlog of content to produce for the trips that we've already done. And then November is really also when the Q4 holiday season kicks into high gear, which is when it's a really busy time in terms of working with sponsors and brands. So for those reasons, I didn't have as much time as I was hoping to get this unit study a little bit more planned, a little bit more organized. So I'm not going to pretend that this was some super polished effort, because it definitely wasn't, but that doesn't mean that there was no learning potential or nothing valuable that came out of it. In spite of the messiness, my girl still learned a lot. So the first thing we did is study the science behind flying. And of course, you can't talk about flight without talking about forces, and you can't talk about forces without talking about gravity. So to study gravity, we actually used the YouTube channel Crash Course. And this is a fantastic channel, lots of educational videos. I actually mentioned this in my November favorites video, which if you haven't watched it, I will link it below. So they have some really great explainer videos about what gravity is, and they present the information in a really fun and engaging way. So I definitely recommend checking that out. So once we had a good understanding of gravity, then I found another couple of YouTube videos that explain specifically how planes are able to fly and the 4 main forces needed for that to happen. So then we got into the history of aviation, and one of the books that I checked out from the library, which is really cool, is called Leonardo's Machines. And it's basically a collection of all kinds of sketches that Leonardo da Vinci had created, all of these machines that he essentially invented or imagined. And of course, among these machines are a lot of different flying contraptions. I found this docuseries on Amazon Prime that looked really interesting. It was called The Amazing World of Aviation. Unfortunately, I didn't get to pre-screen it because, as I mentioned, little disorganized this month. And we only watched episode 1, and it's unfortunate because the content is actually really good, but just the production quality is awful. The narrator has this really annoying voice, and then they make really weird production choices, especially with music. Like they'll be talking about some pilot's tragic death falling from the sky, and then they'll play like really jaunty, jolly music in the background. So it's just really badly produced. And I've realized actually that Amazon Prime, there aren't really a lot of like quality standards. Apparently it's one of those things things where anybody can essentially submit their content to be included in the library. So definitely exercise caution when you see documentaries or shows on Prime. Definitely pre-screen it because the level of quality definitely varies, shall we say. Now, of course, we couldn't talk about aviation history without talking about Amelia Earhart. So in the video I did about last month's unit study on Jacques Cousteau, I introduced you guys to the series Who Was, which is basically a kid's biography series. And Who Was does also have a book about Amelia Earhart. However, for this unit study, for our read aloud, I decided to go with the DK Life Story series, their book on Amelia Earhart. So if you're looking for good kid-friendly biographies, DK Life Stories is another great choice, as is Who Was. So in addition to reading about Amelia Earhart's life story in this book, we also watched a couple of YouTube videos about the disappearance and some of the theories that are out there on what could have happened to her plane. Bessie Coleman is, of course, another towering figure in the history of aviation. And if you want a really good synopsis of her life, there's a really good video on YouTube from the Atlantic's YouTube channel and how she became the first African-American to get her pilot's license. The Wright Brothers are also very interesting figures in the history of aviation. And to cover them, we watched a few YouTube videos, but then we also got this fantastic book called Epic Fails. And this is another fun series you might want to check out in your homeschool. It's a little bit of a lighthearted look at some of the sort of scientific or engineering achievements that have been really important in history, and then also all of the epic fails that led up to those achievements, because after all, nobody got it right on the first try. They had to fail and fail and fail and try again. Now, one thing I had really hoped to be able to do as part of this unit study is some science experiments where I would have the girls actually fold paper airplanes or creating these hoop gliders, which are made of a plastic straw and then a loop of paper on either end. But alas, as I mentioned, we were a little disorganized, a little tight on time this month, so I didn't get to it, but I'm sure there will be a future science lesson where we'll be able to make these and kind of see how they fly. Okay, if you would like to learn all about the unit study we did last month on Jacques Cousteau, just click right there. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Give us a follow on both Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.